Good afternoon.
He wanted everybody this.
Welcome to the critical conversation meeting with our superintendent of schools. This meeting is obviously created and designed to make sure that we share and exchange critical information as stakeholders as we work to support our commitment to high performance in Clayton County Public Schools. I only ask for just a couple of housekeeping rules. Just make sure that your cell phones are turned down. We are recording this session. And make sure that you hold all of your questions until the end of Dr. Beasley's presentation. We'll have staff members, if you would raise your hand, we will acknowledge you and make sure that we pass the mic around so you can present your questions at this time. And of course, this is an open forum, so Dr. Beasley wants to hear from everyone. And if there's questions that we need to entertain in a later date, we'll make sure that we record those, and Dr. Beasley will make sure that he responds to you accordingly. Again, we thank you for being here today, and we thank you for all of your support and commitment and all that you've done on behalf of our students and staff for the school district. And without further delay, I'd like to welcome to the podium Dr. Morsees J. Beasley, our superintendent of schools.
Thank you, Clayton. Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Now, while y'all are here, who's doing y'all's work? It's good to see everybody. So let's see who we have. We're coordinators in hire, right? Let's see which division or department is well represented here today. Teaching and learning, where are you? All right. School leadership and improvement, you here? Business services, are you here? All right. Are you here? Student services. Look at Dr. Dunn. Very good. What about technology? Are you here? Well represented. Good. What about communications? I know he's building that department. Communications and then public relations, government and all that. Partnerships. All right. Lonnie, you're a new member of this division here, aren't you? All right, so you got to represent, Lonnie. Let's see, we mentioned school leadership. Oh, HR. Woo. Let's see. So we got operations, HR, technology, communications, engagement, business services, curriculum and instruction. Anybody else? I'm overlooking? D saying, you overlook me, Dr. Beasley. You part of operations, y'all school leadership. Very good. It's good to see everybody here today, and thank you all for being here on today. We had to reschedule this meeting, right? And so thank you all for being patient with me to get to you all. And so I guess I should go through the 5 goals and make sure y'all know what they are, right? I believe we've done that quite a bit with you all, but I want to make sure that we have a conversation as coordinators and hire that you all are very important to the outcomes in this district. Did you know that? You should know that. You're very, 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 very important. I consider, when you think about coordinators and hire, you all are the leaders of the district. And I know sometimes, you think that the superintendent's the leader, the deputies and the chiefs are the leaders, but really, you all are the leaders of the district. You become the face of the leadership of the district because you're interacting with teachers and others and principals on a daily basis, aren't you? And that's why it's very important for us to have this conversation because how many of you were in the CFT meeting yesterday? CFT. We mentioned yesterday about competence and building trust and how we build trust by being competent. But we build trust also by being responsive, don't we? When people need us and we respond, we build a level of trust. And so, while I may go over the areas of focus again for this group, I think you all already know the importance of the areas of focus and the importance of your role. But I think it's important that I really share how we're really counting on you all to support our classroom teachers, to support our principals, so they can get that work done of ensuring that all students learn at higher levels. So what are the 5 areas of focus? As you can see, the academically challenging and safe classroom environments in all of our schools, in all of our classrooms. And you all know that's some work that we'll be doing for many years to ensure we get every classroom where it needs to be instructionally. That every teacher is a high performer, that every teacher manages that classroom so well that we eliminate, if you will, the variability in quality from classroom to classroom. We got to eliminate that. So a student who goes to teacher A, if for whatever reason they need to go to teacher B, they know that they're going to get at least the same amount of quality. There won't be a reduction, if you will, or a lessening or decrease in the quality of the instruction. We want to make sure that we provide academic and wraparound support for those students who may need that extra boost. You all know we've got many students right now in our district who are performing at the beginning and developing level, don't we? Many times they need that support in order to take them over the hump to that proficient level. And our role is to support principals and teachers as they provide those supports that our students may need. The wraparound support clearly is important. Did I mention student services? Yes. Good, okay. The wraparound support is clearly important because there are times that our kids deal with impacts on their lives and their learning, not necessarily in the classroom, but it directly impacts how they respond where in the classroom. And so we're working to provide the appropriate wraparound support. And then of course, professional development. How many of you are professional development providers in this district? You stand before some amount of employees, teachers, principals, whoever, and you provide staff development. That is important. The areas that we've identified would be content development. And if you're going to be a provider, as all of you are, that means that we've got to be pretty good with our content, don't we? Pedagogy. If we're going to teach adult learners, we've got to make sure that we structure the learning opportunities to respect the research as to how adults actually learn. And if you've not read any articles about adult learners lately, and you provide professional learning for adult learners, then I'm going to ask you to put in your notes today, go out there and Google some articles about training and teaching adults, because you've got to design their experiences somewhat differently, if you will, for those, if you were teaching students, you know, the younger age or the K-12 students. But we need to make sure that we are designing our training for the adults to meet their needs. We want them to improve in their content knowledge, their pedagogy. That means we need to practice and model for them the types of pedagogy we'd like to see. And then of course, that leadership. All of us are leaders. This today is a critical conversation, but it really is a leadership opportunity. All of us are leaders. Somebody's looking at us and somebody is following us. Somebody, some teacher, some group of people are taking their prompts from you. From you. And we must recognize that and continue to support our employees by modeling competence, excellence, professionalism, content knowledge, pedagogy relative to training our teachers and leaders and strategies for improving how students actually learn the content. We've got to model those things. Next, of course, we've got family and community engagement. And if you've been coming to any of our critical conversations, we're working diligently to get our community more engaged at the classroom level, at the school level, and at the district level. At the classroom level, you should see, and we should see, and we are seeing more parents who are logging into Infinite Campus, monitoring those grades, communicating with teachers what they can do to help close gaps. All of that's very important because all of those things create a culture of high performance. We strategically place our announcements in the Infinite Campus platform because we want everybody to know you can go there to get not only district-wide information, but you should be checking grades anyway. You know, it's amazing to me how you have to tell people that one of your responsibilities is to check the grades of your children. And we've got a tool. There's no reason. I remember when I was in school, and many of you, when you were in school, you had to wait for that report card to come out, didn't you? But there's no reason for anybody to have to wait today, is it? They can go, and they wake up in the middle of the night. They can have a dream about grades. They can go and check what? Check grades. There's no reason. And so it's amazing how we've got all these tools. I mean, 24-hour access. But we've got to get our community more engaged and basically involved in using these tools to help us create that culture of high performance. And of course, we want to make sure it's grounded in responsiveness, excellent customer service, and collaboration. And I think all of us in this room are positioned to ensure that we are responsive. And I want to encourage all of us, be responsive. Return the phone call, return the email, do those things. I know I'm very busy, just like you are, but I try to return the phone calls and respond to the emails in a timely manner, because I know somebody's actions may be dependent upon my response. And I don't want it to be known that they can't respond because they're waiting on what? My response. One of the responsibilities of a leader is to manage one's time, so that you can be of support to the individuals that you lead or that you might serve. And so I just want to encourage all of us to be responsive, excellent customer service. You know, my philosophy is you just treat people the way you want to be treated. And that's why I respond. And you know, you all already know I had 4 kids we sent through K-12 education. And so I was an email to the teacher person. But I always wanted to know that if I took out time to email you a question or concern, that you took out time to what? Respond. That's how I believe, and so I realize that when people email me, they probably believe the same thing. And so you just extend to others the courtesy that you would expect. And then that collaboration. I'm very excited and pleased to see that we're working in collaboration with our CFT and our other opportunities that we have in the district. But you all know that when you approve a district systemically, you can't do it in silos. Like just because you have a division for curriculum instruction and assessment, they are not an island to themselves. They've got to work with all the other divisions to get their work done, don't you? Business finance, business services doesn't exist just to exist. They exist to support schools. They exist to ensure that all of us get a check at the end of the month. And they exist to ensure that all of our schools get the fiscal resources that have been budgeted for them to get. They exist to monitor all of that so we can stay within budget, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to work in collaboration with everyone. All the divisions, all the departments have to work in collaboration with each other. And lastly, communication, public relations, and marketing, so we can improve public support of our school district and our image. It's very important that people have a good feeling, if you will, or a good perception or belief about the work that we're doing in the school system. Whether you realize it or not, that perception is tied to the culture of the district. It's tied to decisions that will be made. My goal is to ensure that we get paid the most we can all get paid. It's a whole lot easier to get pay increases when data is improving. Does that make sense? It's hard for a community to push back when you recommend pay increases when they see that their students are performing at high levels. And so that's why it's very important. And not that pay is the most important thing, but it does matter. Would y'all agree with that? Yes, sir. I said yes, sir. Yes, sir. and the image. We want to ensure that, and I've said this in other platforms, we want to ensure that people are moving into our community, choosing Clayton as a place to live, because what happens eventually if we stop drawing families that have children, what happens eventually? The children you have eventually will matriculate and graduate. The enrollment starts to what? Decrease. And you all know what happens when enrollment starts to decrease. What starts to happen? We have to decrease staffing, don't we? And so it all matters. And that's why all of those areas of focus is really all of our responsibility. Would y'all agree with that? Because it all matters. It all matters. And so what I want to do at this point is, we've discussed the data, and Jada, go ahead and pass it out, because this will be the group that we want to just, and you've seen this already, if you've received the data reports, you've seen this data, but let's just have that conversation anyway. In the principal or administrative meeting, in the CFT meetings, and the various meetings, and I'm sure in your department meetings, we've been really talking about flipping the data. And so I just think it's important. It's important. As we support teachers and principals, that we implement strategies that will help us fundamentally and significantly change the outcomes that we're seeing in our districts. And so you've seen the full report, you've all received the full GMAS report. I just pulled a few tables from that report. So you should see, if you have not seen it, I believe we may have posted it in the administrative classroom, in the CFT classroom. You should see the full report for the 2017 data. But I just want, if you will, let's just take a second, everybody, to look at some of this data. I don't think I have to share with you all the full levels of performance. You have the BL as the beginning level, DL is the developing level, PL is the proficient, and DS is the distinguished level. But on page 1 of 6, what percent of our students are considered in reading proficient or higher? On page 1 of 6, in 3rd grade, what percent of our students are considered proficient or higher in our school district? Everybody see 21%? Now we gave you another column there to add in the developing, because some districts report their data using that developing column. I don't really like that strategy, but I provided it here so you can see it anyway. Because I don't think you should be reporting development if they're not on grade level. Why report it? But some people use that as their marketing and strategy. But you can see we've got 55% in grade 3 that are developing and higher. But let's look at grade 4, what percent are proficient or higher? 27. Grade 5, what percent? Grade 6, grade 7, and grade 8. So it looks like we have on an average of about 28% of our kids proficient in reading ELA in grades 3 through 8. You all see that? Which means that we've got on average about 74, 72, 74, 76% that are not. See, we need to flip that. You all agree? We've got to flip that. And so yesterday we mentioned about making sure principals understood who are those students that was developing. Even though this was the Springs data, those kids are down in the next grade, aren't they? We know we've got EIP and REP. Certain kids qualify for EIP and REP. But we've got a large group of kids who are not qualifying for EIP, REP that are learning grade level content, but they still need some intervention. Does that make sense? And so we're working as a district to identify some intervention tools that can be used specifically for this group of students who are not in EIP, not in REP, but who may not be proficient or higher based on their most current test scores, but we know that they need that intervention support. And so our goal is to hopefully have something in place by mid-year, by January of this school year. So let's look at math. And isn't it odd? Because years ago it used to be reading and ELA often was higher than math. But now it looks like the math proficiency is higher than reading ELA. And you all may have some perspective about why that may be the case in some situations. But in grade 3, what percent are proficient and higher? 29%. Grade 4, 29. Grades 5, 6, and 7. Seems like they just all shared the same test, didn't they? And grade 8. Wow, isn't that amazing how we go from 29% proficient in grade 3 down to 17% in grade 8? Realizing that it's all in the same year, and I'm confident we can talk about the various variables that impact these outcomes. If you go over to the far right, you can look at the changes from year 16 to year 17, where we either improved, we decreased, or we flatlined or stayed the same, okay? And so that's for your benefit. Turn to page 2 of 6. I want you to locate Clayton County, if you will. And specifically, the 2015-16 data is there for ELA, for language arts and math, but it's there for 2016-17. What percent for Clayton County this is grade 3 data. For grade 3, what percent, again, is proficient or higher? 21.3%. You all see that? Now, in that column where we have the 21.3, what is the lowest number? Well, that would be us, wouldn't it? I want you to look at that proficient or higher column for math. What's Clayton's number? 28.9. What would be the lowest county in that? 28.9. And so right now, when we compare ourselves with the MRESA, at least for this grade level for language arts and math, we're considered at the bottom, aren't we? That's why we gotta flip out data. We may be at the bottom today, and starting at the bottom is one thing, but staying at the bottom is a mindset. And I don't think there's anybody in here who would be in this room if you had a mindset of staying where? At the bottom. Not a person, not one of you would be here today in the roles that you're in. And what we've got to do is work with our principals and teachers to support them in this work of changing our position, if you will, our ranking as to where we are. So go ahead and flip go to the next page, 3 of 6, excuse me. And I gave you 3rd grade and 8th grade for a reason. You can go back and look at the report and see all the other grades. But here we're looking at 8th grade. And so for Clayton County, for language arts and mathematics for 2016-2017, what percent is proficient or higher for Clayton County for language arts? 28.4, and similarly for mathematics, 21.8. If you look at the column, are we still at the bottom in grade 8? Yes. Okay. And so I share that to say that you all, we may be there today, but we're not going to stay here. And your role, our working together to support the work of teachers in the classroom, that role is very important to changing the outcomes that we see here. Moving our ranking from right down at the bottom to higher levels as we compare ourselves among the other metro districts. If you would turn to page 4 of 6. So now we're going to look at our high school data. You can see the end of course test, and there's a column that has percent proficient. So what percent is proficient for 9th grade literature? 34%. And I won't go through the rest of those, but you can see. But I want you to compare our highlighted proficiency to that of the MRESA in Georgia. You see the gap between us and the MRESA average in Georgia? And that's a gap that we can close. That's a gap that we can close. I would submit to you, we are closing the gap because if you look at our change from 16 to 17, sometimes in some subjects and grade levels, our change was higher than the MRESA in the state, which helps us to close the gap a lot sooner. But I just think we've got to do more of it. And one of the areas that I think will help us change our ranking and close that gap would be to ensure that we are providing support. First, all kids are getting the grade level instruction in every classroom at a high level of academic rigor. They're getting that in every classroom, reducing the variability from teacher to teacher. But I think the other part of that strategy would be for the kids who were developing last year, who are not in EIP and REP, to make sure that we get those kids in intervention. And I really believe that once we get those kids connected to some type of tool, online reading and math tool, and get them in participating in that tool as much as possible, in addition to what the teachers are doing in the classroom, we're going to see our data fundamentally flip. So I want you all to relax and rest assured that we do have a strategy. We've just got to get the right tool in place. Does that make sense, everybody? We're going to see that data flip. But we've got to make sure we get the right tools. So there's a team of us that have been meeting, or that's meeting, to identify where we are, what we have in the district, toward identifying some tools that we can explore further, invite vendors in, toward purchasing a tool to have in place by the middle of the year. I wish we had time and support to have done this last year, and we could have started this year with the tool in place. But I can't cry over spilled milk now, can I? But it would have been great, wouldn't it? Because I know that that's a piece of our strategy that will help us fundamentally flip that data. If you would, just turn to the next page. And here, basically, from the GMAS data, we identify the percent of students who are reading on or above grade level. So I won't read these to you. I want you to take out time for grades 3 through 8 and look at the percent of kids who are reading at or above grade level. And then for the 9th grade literature and the American Lit, you can see the percent of students who are reading on grade level or higher for our district. That information is there just again to highlight and share with you the work that we've got to do to ensure that 100% of our students on every grade level are reading on or above grade level. And I really believe, and this is why we've been working on our pre-K to 3rd grade strategy. If we can get kids, I really believe this, and those of you that have been doing this for a while, you may challenge me, but I really believe if we can get all of our 3rd graders, by the time they take that 3rd grade test, performing at or above on 3rd grade, when they take their first GMAS test, I believe we'll be able to maintain that, and over a period of years, we'll see that our kids, as they matriculate from 3rd grade to 12th grade, our percent reading on or above grade level will remain consistently high. Consistently high. And so that's our work. Now you say, well, what can we do to ensure that we're not dropping they seem to be reading on grade level in 3rd grade, and then it seems like they drop in 4th grade. See, that speaks to that variation or variability in instruction, doesn't it? You got to make sure that the quality of teachers in 3rd grade is no different than the quality of teachers in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, throughout the entire district. And so that's just work for us to do, and that's why your work relative to professional development is very important. In the last page, I want you to see that our grad rate for Clayton County is, as of 2016, 69.1%. We're waiting to receive grad rate information for this year. While we anticipate and expect an improvement in the grad rate, I want you to see that we've got about a 10-point gap between us and the state. The state's being 79.2, our grad rate, overall grad rate for 4-year cohort being 69.1. 69.1. But I believe we can close that. Clearly, if we went from 51.5 in 2011 to 69.1, we can close that gap with the state, can't we? Oh yeah, and the strategies that the principals and schools are using are going to help us do that. So that's the data. And so at this point, what I'd like to do, Jada, if you could, we have mics and others, I'd like for you all to share your thoughts. How's it going? What's working? What's not working? Any questions that you may have, and I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. If I have to pitch the question or pitch it to someone else to respond, we'll do that. But I want you all to feel free. It's a safe environment. This is our safe space. There are no stupid questions. Technically, but sometimes there are. Y'all know that, don't you? But there are no stupid questions. But I want you all to feel free. You know, what's working, what's not working. Dr. B, consider this. Can we consider changing this? This is your opportunity to share. Thank you. And Regina, I know who you are, but tell everybody who you are just in case they don't know who you are.
Good morning. I'm Regina Wallace, the K-12 Social Studies Coordinator for the district. And in looking at the data for ELA and math and speaking with my department chairs at the elementary level, one main concern that they have is the level of, two concerns. One being the level of expectations for science and social studies as it relates to the new Georgia Standards of Excellence versus the amount of instructional time that they receive for science and social studies. So with the expectations increasing for science and social studies and the amount of rigor that has been embedded into our standards, teachers feel like they don't have enough instructional time to fully implement the science and social studies curriculum, which in turn transfers to our ELA data, ELA and sometimes our math data as well. I remember Dr. Lee sharing a release constructive response question from GMAS, and the question asked them about globalization. And that really made a light bulb go off in my head that said, well, if their social studies teacher hasn't had enough time or has not taught them that concept in social studies, it really doesn't matter how well their ELA teacher has taught them those strategies and those ways to write. Their writing won't be as rich because they don't understand the concept of globalization. But sometimes this data is interpreted by our leaderships as they need more time for ELA and math, to the point where some principals have kind of divided up the day as you do half day in ELA and half day in math with no science and no social studies, when we are their informational text. We are their application of those skills that they learn in ELA. So if they continue to learn those skills in isolation, we won't see the growth that they need because they don't have an opportunity to apply it in other subject matters such as social studies. So with that ELA time being a concern, I just wanted to know what should I relay to teachers as a way to kind of support them in what they're trying to do in not just ELA but science and social studies as well.
Thank you. That's a great question, Regina. And you think on surface, it sounds easy by just mandating. You think mandating so much time, in which, the state rule is clear. You have so many hours of instruction for K-5, 6, 12, etc. You think it would be easy to just say mandate, like we do in ELA and math, so much time. But I've seen the time mandated and it still didn't bump up the scores because they didn't do exactly what you were getting to. Using that informational text, if you will, as they're teaching the ELA, as they're teaching the math, showing kids the relationship between, I need some water. Y'all see I'm having one of my water moments. Uh-oh, what's this? Man, this. This water? It's busy. I ain't no water, please. Okay. So what I would suggest, Regina, and I appreciate what we probably should do is meet offline and maybe come up with some best practices for principals that they can use and go ahead and codify it, if you will, in a communication. These are the best practices for making sure that we maximize and we support the ELA, the science and the social studies curriculum, but even within the context of math and ELA. And I know Vic is working with about 12 schools, Vic, relative to the K2 integration, teaching the core content integration. But it may be helpful for us right now, probably sooner than later, to come together as a team, or you all work offline as a team, and let's come up with these are some things that we suggest you do to make sure that kids are getting that science and social studies instruction. And here are some opportunities, some options for you. I just think they probably need that. I think sometimes the challenge is it's easier at the secondary level, but at the elementary level, I think our design is really hurting us. You expect the teacher, honestly, to go deep with all of this content. They need time for planning, they need time for collaboration, they need time for tutorials, they need time. I don't know where they're getting all this time from. And so we've got to maybe give them some ideas as to how they can approach that, how they can approach it. And I think it helps us if we, of course, like we have our assessment process, unit assessments. I know you all are using your social studies DBQs, but I think all of that helps. But we probably need to be more strategic in telling them, okay, for science and social studies, here are some opportunities, some options, some ideas for making sure that the kids are getting the content. It doesn't mean that they don't need to teach so many science and social studies so many minutes. They do need that. But they also need to take full advantage of integrating to the extent that they can that content in those other areas. If for no other reason but to use the reading information as they're teaching reading, to use it as they're teaching math, showing the connections, etc. So we probably just need to be, I think, more intentional and strategic in that regard. Okay? But I acknowledge that that's not a quick fix, but it's a reality. Okay? Anybody else? Anybody else? So, while you all are thinking about your questions, so Regina, I'm going to give you and the K-12 coordinators a task, and we'll let you be the lead. Let's work to come up with some ideas for principals that we can send to principals as to how they can approach that science and social studies clearly as a subject in and of itself, but within the other subjects as well. And we may want to remind them how many minutes the students should be getting on a daily basis in science and social studies, right? But I think there's some work for us possibly relative to curriculum mapping, where we ensure that in order to go deep, that we're not going too far. And I know we have alignment between what's being taught by our curriculum and what's being assessed. But let's just even talk about that to make sure, are there any alignment opportunities, any gaps, alignment opportunities there, which I think we have addressed. So right now we've got to close the gap relative to instruction of the standards and assessment of those standards. And that means instructional time, but more importantly, making sure that they see the connection between science, social studies, math, and ELA, etc. Okay, anybody else? Dr. Clark.
Good morning, I'm Tanya Clark. I'm the K-12 math coordinator for Clayton County. You just mentioned one of the struggles that we're having as far as teacher time. When it comes to, when we look at our data, we see the difference between the student growth and student achievement in elementary versus middle and high school. We have a large number of middle and high school teachers who are either transitioning into the field from other careers, who don't have the content or the pedagogical background, especially at middle and high school, and they are struggling with teaching the content. Yet we struggle to get them to sign up for professional development. We have our elementary courses overflow. Our middle school courses might make, and our high school courses rarely ever make. So we're trying to brainstorm on different ways that we can support these teachers with developing the content. The ISF restructuring has been a huge help, even so far as they're just getting started with getting them some of the pedagogy, but we can't teach them the content as they're teaching the content. We have to actually have some time to help them to understand the math. So just struggling, how do we get that information to them when the time?
Well, while you were asking the question, I just had a thought, Dr. Clark. Instead of asking them to come to us, we need to go to them. And so let's figure out where, let's get a schedule of their department meetings and create a district-wide calendar of department meetings by school and what topics, and allow those departments to host the trainings during that time. You may get more participation, and I hope I'm making sense. So let's say you've got like Drew High School may have their math department meetings, let's say on third block, Monday through Friday. Well, instead of you asking them to come to your training after school, why not work with Drew High School to take your training to the Drew High School's math department meetings on certain days of the month? And possibly, if there are teachers or others that are near Drew High School that can come and participate, allow them to come over there and participate at that time. So I don't know if you're doing anything like that.
We do that, something similar to that.
Okay.
So with high schools, we have,
So we have 12 different high schools plus 16 different middle schools, one me. And then there's the ISFs who are coming out as well and providing PD during their department meetings. Most of that is around pedagogy because not every teacher, so they're differentiating it based on what that school needs, but of course that's at the high school 50 minutes. It's limited time
Then
for
we-
those who really need the content.
We need a tool, like let's say like I'm at Drew High School, let's say you go to Drew High School, Dr. Clark, and you're working on content with the teachers. Does the technology exist, April, where she could be recording herself and live streaming it, that others could be participating if they're at another school at that time? We need to check to see if that type of technology, and that would be a good investment to have. So as you go from, let's say you decided to do a session at Drew High School, then those who are in other places, you can record it so they can participate if they're in class themselves, or if they're available, they can participate using the online platform, whatever tool. So let's see if there is some technology out there that will help us get around the lack of participation.
Dr. Beasley, we have that technology. We've got it in about 2 or 3 different formats.
Okay.
So, yes, we have it.
Okay, so I'm gonna give her an assignment to get with US and April to see, and let's get that technology, and then Dr. Clark at the same time.
And we'll work with Dr. Duffy because she also has it. So
Very good. And so we really start going to them during the school day, right? And I think they probably would prefer that. And then we can also document who's participating, because don't they have to log in and all that stuff? Does that make sense? So let's just see how we can leverage the technology to help us address that gap. But I'll tell you this, I know we don't need to be paying Emreese all that money we paying them if they're not showing up. You know, and then institute something that says that the class, if let's say you do a face-to-face, if you don't have, 10 or more, like we do at the high school, the class can't make it. And I can't pay Emreese. They love Clayton. They love Clayton. But they know they're going to get nice money for teaching 2 people. And we got to change that. But I think we got to go to them instead of them coming to us. And I really believe and then you got to realize you're trying to target high school people, aren't you? Middle and high. See, they already think they know it all. So you got to give them a chance to learn from their little space. You gotta know your characteristics of, I don't need your content with me.
And Dr. Beasley, Blackboard was the system that Wesley talked about, and I think Tanya and I have tried to do that before. Blackboard will be a perfect platform to deliver that kind of instruction or PD to teachers, and professional development has enough license, if I'm not mistaken, Ben, where we can do that for all the high schools and middle schools.
And Tanya, what I would suggest is let's try with 1 or 2 topics. Let's try it first. We got to work with the various people to get it communicated. Let's try it and see, and then we can go from there. But I don't know. I wish I had an easy solution. You know, people might say, well, just make them come after school. That's easier said than done. And I don't think that creates a culture of high performance. And so let's see if we can find a way to leverage the technology. Yeah, we may have to start out small, get some success, and then expand it once we see we have some degree of success, okay? Dr. Lee, what y'all done got together and decided go down the road? All right, Dick is next.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am Ebony Lee, the Language Arts Coordinator, and of course, I think we all know that we have work to do in the area of literacy, because that is really the foundation for the entire academic program. I wanted to expound upon what Regina shared about the opportunity and the need for that cross-curriculum connection. Recently, we developed our high-impact practices, or just the strategies that should be used across each of our programs that really will allow our students to demonstrate learning at a deeper level. And what was interesting is that when I looked at my practices and I looked at Regina's, they really were very reflective. She talked a lot about the reading, the writing, the speaking, the listening, the critical thinking, all of that. So what I do see in opportunities for our teachers now, since the rigidity of sticking to the program has been relaxed, the reading program, is that our reading for informational standards can be specifically taught using the social studies content. And instead of our teachers having a separate writing, end of unit writing task for language arts, they could use the document-based question as their writing, but our teachers could assess the structure of writing. And the social studies teachers could assess, well, the same teacher could look at the content. And so offline, since we had that task to look at communications principles, those are two starting points. Using the reading for informational standards to expose students to that rich content, rich vocabulary that's grounded in the social studies and science, as well as making your document-based questions our end of unit. At the third grade level, we just have a lot of work to do, and I know Vic is going to speak to what's being done at K2, but our students are coming to us, 70% of them are not possessing grade level performance. So our third grade teachers are struggling with, in that time frame, how to teach the foundational skills, as well as what's assessed, which is the high level vocabulary, comprehension, writing for narrative, writing for information, writing for opinion, and grammar skills. So I guess my thinking is, how do we go to the schools and have sufficient time to build the level of pedagogy and content that's needed? Now, one thing I've done recently through Dr. Colbert had the idea of pulling teachers. Dr. Duncan approved for us to pull teachers to the Professional Learning Center from multiple school sites, and she's funding substitutes. So I know we're taking the teacher out of the classroom, but at least we have an all-day session with them to give a deeper concentrated PD. So I don't know if that's one avenue, just to have quarterly sessions where we go deeper, in addition to using the ISLs as well as we and the leads going into the schools to provide training. So I just wanted to share that was one avenue that we can use.
Well, I think the first thing that you mentioned about using the DBQs in the ELA, they would appreciate that, because they're meeting that goal in light of the rubrics that you have for writing rubrics, right?
Yep.
And so you save some time, you save some effort, but you, for lack of a better analogy, you kill two birds with one stone.
Right.
I don't believe in killing birds.
Right. And we can do that with opinion and information.
If you can, I would say, and what we need to do, Dr. Lee, is we need to look, and Vic, I know Vic is going to speak to the K2 and K3, but we need to look at, I'm very concerned about the amount of writing that the students are not doing at that level.
Yep.
And then when they get to third grade, it intensifies, but they've not had sufficient experience and opportunity at the K2 level. And then if you just take that line of thought going up, matriculating through the grades, they're just not having enough writing experience.
Good writing.
With good.
And one of the things,
Shut
Yes, ma'am. One of the things Dr. Lee and I are collaborating on this year in that vein is that we're going to provide K-12 writing training on 3 designated Saturdays, because I do recognize the need for the K-2 teachers to really develop their ability to teach writing, because they get so focused on teaching the reading that we may not have put the emphasis on the writing that we need to. So that is a focus for us this year.
And what I would suggest is that somehow look at our reading lessons. We've got to give them a natural flow, if you will, as they teach reading, to go and transitioning right into a writing assignment on a consistent basis.
Right.
And I think we know how to do that easily, but we've got to train them on how to do that easily, consistently, and daily. They've got the rubrics. I mentioned the other day the exemplar. Do they have the exemplars?
They have anchor papers.
They have the anchor papers.
But we need to bring them out.
There you go.
Essentially, the anchor paper provides the grade level and the grade level expectation of what a kindergarten should be able to do all the way up to the 12th grade.
They need to bring those anchor papers out, and they need to put those right now in front of the students. So the students will know, it doesn't matter where you are right now, this is where I need you to be. And parents need to see that as well. Parents need to see, this is the type of writing we need to see, the quality of writing we need to see by the end of this grade. And then work on that natural flow from teaching the reading to the writing, to engaging in a writing assignment, and then of course the training. I think that those would be excellent supports in our strategy that would help us change this dynamic over time. I do see some increased effort in students, teachers requiring students to take notes. While we've not, and I don't advocate a particular note-taking format, I do encourage people to, depending on the level, the notes may look different. But it's important that kids start listening to teachers and start writing, because that helps improve your writing, it helps improve your spelling, it helps a lot. And I like to see students with dictionaries. We have dictionaries in all, at least in our ELA classes. So we need to help our teachers to get students in the habit of using dictionaries. I went into one class and the kids teachers had them engaged in a writing assignment, and they were having trouble spelling words. And you say, well, a dictionary doesn't help you if you don't know how to spell the word, but it does. I remember not knowing how to spell some words, but I put enough about my phonics to help me put me in the area where the word would be, to figure out where the word was. So we just need to make sure our teachers are encouraging and modeling for our students how and when they should use a dictionary as well. Even if they're using phones, I know because now we can just Google what we think the word is and hit dictionary, and it may come up. The technology has advanced to that point. So I think all of those things. So Vic, tell us exactly right now, you want to talk about K2, K3?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I was going to say, one of my concerns is kind of in line with what Tanya said and in line with what Effie Levine said, is the lack of planning time that our elementary teachers have. When we talk about collaborative planning in general, collaborative planning means one thing at the middle and high school level, but it's completely different at the elementary level. Because at the elementary level, they have a 40-minute specials time, which really equates by the time you drop off your children, you have to leave and pick up your children, and you get in there, you get settled, you may have 20 minutes if you're lucky. So trying to figure out how we creatively fix that problem. I know some schools try different things, they give half-day plannings in various places, but the teachers themselves just don't have the time to get together at the grade level to plan. My other concern, it was a deep concern last night. I teach the reading courses for the TAP program. And last night I was teaching the first-year TAP teachers. And one of the modifications we've made with their courses is that when they finish with the TAP program, they get the reading endorsement. But Faye and Dr. Duncan and I had a conversation last year that starting them in the first reading endorsement class was a little overwhelming for them. So what we've done this year is I'm giving them the first 3 modules of letters to kind of give them that foundation and that understanding of what reading is and how to teach reading. But in the conversation last night, as I'm connecting what I'm teaching them to Imagine It and Reading Wonders, it comes out that there's a whole room full of teachers who clearly don't understand their reading programs. They don't have the materials that they need. And I'm finding that to be an issue, that the schools are not doing they're not doing what they need to do to make sure the teachers have the materials. So because the teachers haven't had the materials, they just haven't been teaching this program. So there's a need to get some additional training for this group of TAP teachers in their reading programs. But again, part of it, I think, goes back to is the lack of planning time at the elementary level. And I don't know that I have the answer for that, but I think we need to figure out how to solve that.
Well, that, and clearly we've had this conversation before, and I think one of the things we need to look at is the assignment of subs to help out, so that teachers can get a little, I'm even thinking, Dr. Simpson, I don't even know if, you know how we used to give schools an extra sub or 2 every day to help with other things that need to be done? I'm thinking about the time teachers taking kids to specials. We should have can't we somehow pull some adults in who can help us with those type of management type things? It just seems to me, Greg, where are you, Greg? It just seems to me, can we at least go back and look to see if we can let schools, at elementary schools, get an extra sub or something every day to help with some of this, to maximize the time teachers have planning. Maybe they could be the ones to pick the kids up and take them where they need to go. It's something to consider.
There's money involved in that.
Yes, sir. There's always money involved. Always money involved. And then we know that the federal funds are available, but they got to do like a make and take. And so, but again, that's that's adding time on to their day, right? Or adding on time on Saturday, etc., which is also a challenge as well. So, but there are options. We just got to decide, what's the lesser of the 2 evils. And it's always a challenge when you have non-departmentalized grade levels and teachers, because they've got to plan for all 4 content areas versus 1 content area.
Right, exactly. So in 20 minutes, you want me to plan for 4 content areas.
It's not happening.
Right.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Anybody want to take it away from C High Head?
Want to talk about our professional learning in terms of how it relates not only to CNAs, but how it relates to all of our departments. I think one of the conversations I had with Ebony is that when I was a principal, we used to have all this after-school remediation, trying to work with kids, and then you'd have about 6 or 7 or 8 of them show up. And I finally told them that this is not enough people coming to make an impact on what we're trying to do in school. And it's the same thing with the teachers, and that was a conversation that she and I had. If they are not coming to you, then we have to go to them. We have schools that request that we come and do workshops with their staff during planning time, and they make planning time if they have to hire subs during the day in order for them to have that time, to have that training. And we've been requested to come every other week and sit down. We also go into the classrooms of those teachers who are having difficulty. We do observations of those teachers. We sit down with them and provide feedback for them. We write plans of support. We go back and check and see how they're doing. And these things can have follow-up by the ISLs, by the administrators, because they will all know what's going The other piece of that is getting into the different plans that we have for this year in technology integration. And that is that we cannot wait until time for the GMAS to decide to put them behind computers and have them work with that particular format. They need to be working with that on a regular basis. I just came from a meeting this morning for a TAP retreat, and they had a program called Quizlet. And I'm not sure if you all are familiar with that, but the Quizlet program allows teachers to put information in, or if you're working with a group, if you sign into that, it will assign you to a group, and from that, they are able to work as a group with their cell phones just by logging into Quizlet and communicate and collaborate with each other on answers and how to come about solutions for those various things. So I looked at that this morning and got excited because that's putting technology in the hands of kids. It also is giving them an opportunity to collaborate with each other and work together and coming up with solutions and answers. So there's any number of ways we can go. Blackboard, as we have it, will accommodate up to 2,000 people at one time within our contract. We have the option to increase that up to 5,000 at minimal cost, and we can put classes on Blackboard, even including videos of teaching, and make that happen also. And one of the best trainings in terms of me getting feedback that has been conducted by the Teaching and Learning Department was the letters training. And what happened is we made sure everybody got letters training, and it wasn't a matter of them volunteering to come in, and everyone who left with a good taste in their mouth because the training was done excellently. So in looking at the adult learning principles and how we teach, which has a lot to do with engaging teachers in actual learning, as well as looking how, because if we don't have the 10 teachers and just say that's enough to make a class, 10 teachers are not going to have a major impact on what we're trying to do with the whole district. So we are going to have to go to them. We're going to have to do side-by-side coaching. We're going to have to do modeling and show them what it looks like when we tell them and set up plans for them and they still don't get it. We are qualified to go in there and show them what it looks like. So I'm making more of a statement than a question, but I'm just talking about some experiences that we have had to get those people who just will not come to those classes at night engaged in talk.
Dr. Clark, it may be helpful to, I think you and I may have had this conversation, I don't know if we ever followed up. Are there any, you know how the kids can go on Khan Academy, etc., to help them learn their content? We may need to start pushing a resource like that for teachers that they can use to help strengthen and take them deeper in their content knowledge, without being too insulting, of course. Oh, are you?
And we do have a Blackboard account where just about all math teachers are assigned into my Blackboard account. That's how we do the assessments that we did with them and some other communication as far as specific content. And we, of course, we do a lot of the side-by-side coaching and the in-building support with the teachers. But these are specific teachers who just don't have content knowledge.
Well, and then we've got to tie that to their growth plans. And then if we have an online tool where we monitor their access and what they're doing, then that may be something we need to amplify or ramp up our conversation and our monitoring of them. Okay, April?
Good morning.
Good morning. Afternoon?
Oh, afternoon already. I just wanted to talk to my colleagues, the content coordinators, about the planning period in elementary school. You probably have already thought about it. Dr. Beasley, you touched on it in my another district I worked in, we did for elementary schools specifically. We had a traveling team. Of course, it was a much smaller district, but it was a team of not teachers, but a traveling substitute team. They would show up at one elementary school one day. They would, there was enough of them to sub in the K-1-2 classroom so that those K-1-2 teachers could then go somewhere else in the building and have a 2.5-hour planning time. And then, of course, in the afternoon, they went and covered 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Just what I did, it was very successful, and the teachers absolutely loved it. And as someone going and helping the teachers, it was, you could tell it was making a difference, because if I went to help Ms. Jones on 3rd grade and then to help Ms. Smith in 3rd grade, they're teaching the same thing. I was familiar with what they were doing. Principals were familiar. Just a thought. The second thing I wanted to address is, I am familiar with Quizlet, but I wanted everyone to know everything that Dr. Duncan just mentioned can be done in G Suite. All of our students have student accounts. They all have access to G Suite. In every app available, there's the collaboration feature. They can do it both at school, they can do it from anywhere in the world. But I just wanted to assure everyone that that capability is in G Suite, so you wouldn't have to consider bringing in another application. And right now we have had over 30,000, and this is based on a week-old report. It's probably a better number now. Had over 30,000 students claim their account. The ticket requests for resetting student accounts has gone down tremendously. Where we were getting a list of 10, we're now educating the teachers. The ISFs have helped out. Our technology liaisons that are in the school have helped out now that they understand, oh, okay, they have to put the S in for their username. And when they're claiming the account, they have to put it in exactly as it is in Infinite Campus. Out of the thousands of students that I have helped and reset and helped teachers, there have been about 6 students where there was actually something wrong with the file. And we figured that out and settled that too. So that's going way down, and the utilization is going way up. Just today I shared with our leadership team, one of our ELA teachers at Kendrick was using, the kids were actually creating their own screencast videos to demonstrate their learning, so which is also an extension available in Google. So everything Dr. Duncan was saying is awesome, and it's all available in G Suite. So just to kind of keep from bringing in other applications.
And you know, this came up last night when we were at Forest Park. I think it was a teacher. I've seen them at more than one forum about how can teachers share some exemplar lesson plans and things of that nature. So have we, you know, it's another to do. You know, using G Suite to set up an opportunity to share lesson plans by content area subject for teachers across the district, using the tools to really help us. Because, you know, sometimes when you think about it, you know, it's time to save with planning. If I could possibly, I got a colleague across the district who's going to teach the very same thing, and they could share their lesson plan, and I can look at their lesson plan and maybe tweak it to use, etc. So that's another way of saving time and adding time, especially at the elementary level. So we need to figure out a way to create some sharing of resources or lesson plans, even at the elementary level, which may help us with that time issue. Okay. That's okay.
I just wanted to just add some more clarity. Blackboard is a great tool. It is dependent on the administrator. So if you really can't really move without the administrator's help. So Google Classroom, everyone has access to it. Everyone can administrate from it themselves. So really that's the most efficient way to get information out. It's already there. Everyone already has access to it. So basically if you set up a Google Classroom, just like Dr. Beasley, he's already created webcam messages. Every teacher, everybody in this room can do the same thing. Easily pull up the laptop, record yourself, post it to your Google Classroom, whatever your Google Drive, and send that out. And then you can even have a form created, and I know some of those who've been to my session know what I'm talking about, but you have a form created to allocate or capture all the names of the people who access the information. So that way you have some accountability on that end. So there's so many different things out there.
I don't know anything about all that.
There's so many things out there. What everything I was trying to say is that you already have the ability right now without somebody else's help. And that's what I wanted to emphasize. If you just use the tools that you have in G Suite, you don't need to ask no administrator. You don't need to ask Ben to help set up the video conferencing equipment. You got everything that you have at your fingertips. So that's all.
To that point, Ben, Tanya, you can do, like little content snippets, help people and label them accordingly, let your people know. I've got some content knowledge snippets, going deeper with the content knowledge snippets and post them in ways that teachers can access them. We just gotta leverage, y'all hear what I'm saying? Leverage the technology we have. If they're not coming to us, we go to them. Kind of like the way the cable companies have done. They making it so that you don't even have to go to the movies anymore.
And Hangouts, if you want to record yourself, then you can archive those. Google Hangouts will work for, the face-to-face teachers. You can't log in at the time of the live hangout. You can archive it and give them a link to it. So I'm glad they brought that up when they said on Blackboard, but right, everybody has access to that. So.
Very good. All right, you got any more questions? Y'all somebody must have texted Mr. Scott and told him, you better ask a question.
I was just going to piggyback, but April actually said it. I'm looking at using Google Hangouts so I don't have to go to the schools personally. I can't get to 37 elementary schools at the same time. April and Ben and I actually tested this, and we did a Google Hangout before, so I can do some training and just have my teachers pull up their laptop at their school, and it doesn't take time out of their day. They don't have to come after school. They don't have to show up at professional learning. It's something they're really accepted. And I'd like to thank April as well for, I have a tech liaison in PE this year, and it's been wonderful. We've got a Google Classroom set up already, and that's something that April's helped us with, and it's helped immensely with our teachers who have questions. They just know that the tech liaison is there, and they can get it rectified quickly and efficiently. So thank you, April.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. All right.
So good afternoon, I'm Yetunde Alade, call me Yeti. I'm in nutrition services, and I'm speaking as a parent. I don't do teaching and learning, but I have a question and I have an observation of the best practice that I think might be effective for you to help you with what we're trying to accomplish. First, when my kids went to Needles, the dual language school, there was challenge with children speaking or doing well in the ELA content. And one thing I saw then that helped, there was this grandma who volunteered every day at the school. And what she would do is she would pull the children that were like a child that was struggling into the hallway. She had a desk and 2 chairs in the hallway. And she would walk with the child one-on-one until the child had mastered the skill set and return the child to the classroom. And she was a phenomenal lady. We always gave her awards from the PTA back then. And I started thinking, and I know for a fact that when you have one-on-one with children, which we cannot afford to have for every child, you will see the children and the games they're discussing. But I also now go to a church, where churches adopt schools. So my suggestion is it possible for us as a school district to work with the churches in the neighborhood, whereby when a church adopts a school or a couple of churches adopt schools, when the churches talk about community service, they have their members that can come in and sign up to help students in those schools. Because when I look at children in the other school districts that are performing, and look at children in our district, I think the number one factor we have to admit is that when the parents themselves are well educated, more than likely the child will also perform because you have the home support. We have a district where I know you struggle with ELA, and because the adults don't speak good English, let's be practical. So if the adults don't speak good English, the children don't speak good English. If they can't speak it, well, the children will learn that. So if we can adopt churches in our neighborhood that can come into the school and children can have one-on-one interaction with adults that can assist them in reading and learning, maybe that will help. So that's one thing.
Well, let's pause there, Jada. I'll tell you, we're doing that. We have our faith-based partnerships, and We have many churches that are supporting schools, and they're doing exactly that. Mr. Spiva is heading up partnerships, so we're going to determine where the gaps are and ensure that all of our schools have those type of partnerships. But we have many, and we meet with the faith-based leaders bi-monthly or something, every 3 months. And so, and we're seeing an increase in the number of those who are attending, which is good. And so I want you to know as a parent and as an employee, all of you to know as employees, that that is something that is occurring today, and we're working to expand that to ensure that every school has those type of partners that we believe can help our students academically, socially, etc.
Then secondly, my other question, this is now a question, not a best practices. Is there a reason why we administer tests the week after spring break? Because as a parent, I know the children go on vacation, they go to Disney World, they go to all these places, they're not reading. And then they come back on Wednesday, they come back on Monday, and on Wednesday, they start the testing. And personally, I felt that has done the district a disservice. I don't know why the decision is being made.
We changed that for, I want to say this past spring we changed that. And in the spring, for this coming up spring, they will get at least a week once they come back, and then we'll start testing. And so we recognized that was a challenge, and we were able, that was within our control, so we adjusted our calendar to address that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Very good. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. That all minds clear? Well, until we meet again, right? Thanks for what you all are doing. Keep it moving. Take care of yourselves, and let's continue to support our teachers and principals as we move our district to higher levels of performance. Thanks, everybody.